Thank you. Let's give it up again for Mr. Demetrius. Let's support him. He is the only vendor that can sell something here, so let's support him. Everybody else just signing folks up. This particular session of our program, very, very critical. It's called Citizens Arrest, Fact or Fiction. We know that we hear sometimes when people, say, I'll perform a citizen's arrest, and that's it. We just hear it in jest. But there's an old aphorism that says many truths are said in jest. Joining us today, we have Attorney George Anthony Esquire. He is the Secretary of the Board of Police Commissioners. He's also an adjunct professor of criminal justice at Wayne County Community College District. He also teaches law to newly recruits of the police department. Joining him to his left is Attorney Celia Banks Washington, Esquire. She's an attorney and supervising investigator for the Board of Police Commissioners. She, too, is also an adjunct professor teaching law at the University of Detroit Mercy. Please give them a warm round of applause for their presence. Thank y'all for coming. Y'all were nervous to be some attorneys. We're going to talk about something. As you all know, we have discussion concerning a particular law that most citizens don't know anything about. And I think George will speak to it momentarily, that there are some officers that don't know too much about this law as well. That law is called the Michigan Compiled Law, annotated for MCLA 794-2016. 716, thank you so much. See, that's why we get turned. That law is called Arrest by the Private Persons. And I just want to get your feedback. I mean, people hear me reverberating the law all the time. I am a law student, graduate from UVM. But there's nothing like being an attorney and teaching this law as an everyday thing. You hear some people say that it's dangerous to go after criminals. That, as a matter of fact, some law enforcement officials say that that's something that you should not do. But the law says to the contrary. The law says that a private person can go after a person and perform a citizen's arrest. And I'd like, George, can you give us a little feedback to that, please?
Thank you. If I could, before we get started, I would like to just take a personal prerogative, if I may.
Absolutely.
I would like to introduce, or at least acknowledge, two members of our police commission. I would like to acknowledge Police Commissioner Reverend Michael Reeves,
Stand up, Mike.
and Police Commissioner John White. You're absolutely correct that the law 764.16 does give private citizens arrest authority. It is somewhat limited, and it comes from our common law tradition, which comes from England. Some of you may know that in England, back in the 18th and 19th century, there were groups of families would get together called tithing. And as all of you know, 10 is tithing, so 10 families would get together. Ultimately, that grew into hundreds of families, or hundreds of tithings would get together in what's called shires. And these shires appointed a person who would be over the law enforcement functions. So that person became a shiree, which comes over here as being sheriffs of counties. In England, anytime a crime was committed, and it had to be a felony crime, there was a tradition called hue and cry. And so the hue and cry was that the person who witnessed the crime would ring a bell and let the community know a crime was committed, and all able-bodied men would come out and would pursue the criminal.
Do we have any vendors with bells back then? You'd be ringing all day? No, go ahead, I'm sorry.
And so they would pursue the felons. That tradition came to America. That's the common law tradition that came to America. Michigan adopted the common law, and ultimately some of the traditions that were common law in England were made statutory here in Michigan. So in 764.16, we have 4 provisions of 764.16. And I'm going to let the...
Thank you, because I was going to say, you talk a whole lot, attorney. No, George. Thank you, George. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Specifically, we're talking about MCL 764.16, and it does deal with the arrests made by private persons. And I think that it's very, very important to put into everybody's hearing the 4 specific instances where citizen arrest is acceptable. A private person may make an arrest in the following situations. A, for a felony committed in the private person's presence. B, if the person to be arrested has committed a felony, although not in the private person's presence. And we'll talk a little bit about that because that could be potentially dangerous. C, if the private person is summoned by a peace officer to assist the officer in making an arrest. And finally, a little bit more latitude as it would relate to a merchant. If the private person is a merchant, an agent of a merchant, an employee of a merchant, or an independent contractor providing security for a merchant of a store, and has reasonable cause to believe that the person to be arrested has violated certain sections of the penal code.
So that's your security guard.
That would be your security guard.
Let's go back up to the first criteria. If someone commits a crime in your presence, now crime is identified as rape, murder, stealing, or anything against the penal code. Is that correct?
Felony.
Felony, okay.
I think
Not a
that's
misdemeanor.
important. It is not a misdemeanor.
Not a misdemeanor. So felony is the term, okay? So felony meaning anything convicted for 2 years or more, is that correct?
Felony is defined by statute as being an offense which carries a penalty in excess of 1 year. So for more than 1 year.
Vigilantism. We know what vigilantism is, right? Everybody know, taking the law in your own hands. Where is the line at between vigilantism and CC? We go back. Between vigilantism and MCL 764.16.
Vigilantism is a definition that I would say is really taking the law in your own hands. The law does gives citizens some authority, but they have to, but the person in which they are in fact arrested must have committed a felony. So the law does not protect a person in arresting someone who has not committed a felony, even though they know that a crime has been committed. I think you mentioned the important crimes. Murder,
Absolutely.
robbery, rape, arson. Those are traditionally felonies.
That make people leave our communities. Go out. Okay, let me ask you this. Go back to arrest.
Yes.
I just know a little bit, tiny bit. The statute is unclear to what an arrest is. And I know we have Lisa Howe and a couple of state representatives who are here who are a part of the legislative body that creates the law and establish a particular legislative intent for judges to go by when they're handing out some type of punishment. What is an arrest?
An arrest is essentially detaining someone or holding someone for presentation to the court after they've committed a crime. And that's essentially what it is.
Did everyone understand that? Everyone understand what arrest is? Okay, one more time, Attorney.
It's detaining the person for presentation in court to answer on a crime.
Number 2, where a person may not have committed a crime in your presence. Our last case that we helped Chief Ralph Gabi and the men and women in blue, was a serial rapist. Of course, everyone is innocent until proven guilty, but it just so happened no more rapes happened on the side of St. Mama Ratchet. Thank God. We didn't see a rape. We were not there. But as an August body working with Detroit Police Department, not for them or against them, but with them, we know that a rape occurred. And so we went looking for this rapist, as was identified on the composites by Officer Ortiz of PPD. Can you speak to that in regards to the rape not happening, not witnessing, but the fact in being in court 794.
As I mentioned before, B is the stickler, if
Absolutely.
you will. And that's why I commend your group for working with the police.
That's the key.
That is the key because, as George has mentioned, it's an old statute. 1927, I believe it is. Things were quite a bit different then. And to arrest or to make an attempt to arrest a person for something that you yourself did not witness could potentially expose a citizen, would make them vulnerable to liability. And I think that's the biggest message. I searched cases, and there are some pretty recent cases to deal with this. But that's why I think it's so important, particularly if you didn't see it, if you weren't there, you need to have the police, because the level that the police operate under in terms of probable cause is not the same level that your regular citizen would operate under. And I think it's important to know that, because we probably should have said this before we started talking, that this is not legal advice, but it is certainly.
Yeah, that's the disclaimer.
Yeah, I was going to put the disclaimer.
From the board.
Yeah, absolutely. However, I think it's important that citizens know how to protect themselves from liability.
Thank you so much. We want to, and if you can give them a warm round of applause. You are within your rights to arrest an individual. Now, don't try to do it by yourself. But we're going to meet two women who actually had the grace of God on their side and did make a citizen's arrest in this city. And we're going to give them kudos. But you have a right. You have a right. That law came out in 1927, and the legislative body of this state amended it in 1988. So you have a right to make a citizen's arrest. Now, you should be trained. You shouldn't do it by yourself. That's my advice, because we're on the streets every single day. You should join the Detroit 300 and work with DPD. Okay, y'all can clap for that. Thank you so much. We're moving on to our program. Thank you so much.